So far we've done validation in a way that any controller that inherits from show everything will get automatic validation to its entity based on the definition in the entity and whether or not it implements the interface. But we want every UI controller to be able to do that. It doesn't make sense that validation will only happen in controllers that inherit from show everything. I can still go to another screen, like this one, and switch to modify, which I thought I could. And I will not get the validation over here. I can even go to the list of entities and make a change over here and not get the validation. So how do we face that? How do we make the validation available everywhere? Well, as you probably know, everything inherits from UI controllers. If I go to show everything and click go to definition, it inherits from UI controller base in Northwind. If I'll go to it, we can see that it inherits from env UI controller base. And if I'll go to it, we can see that it inherits from abstract UI controller in env. And when I go there, I will actually see a lot of implementation here. So I want to add the call over here. I want to add the call to env. So in any UI controller in my application, those validations will apply. Now, of course, you need to do that with caution because you might be putting yourself in a bit of risk, getting validation where you didn't expect it, but still, it's an extremely powerful tool. The second question that comes up is where do I want to put it? Well, in the show everything, we've done the validation in the on-saving row. Now, since most of my code overrides the on-saving row without calling its base, we need to actually implement it where on-saving row is being called. And if we'll go and search for it, look for its references, we'll be able to see here that it's being implemented in many places, but it's only being called once. In abstract UI controller on-saving row, it's being called here, okay? Which took us all the way to abstract UI controller to the code that handles on-saving row. Great, so let's start moving our implementation to env. We'll need to remember this place, so we're going to put a bookmark over here. And we're going to use something cool like partial classes, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Bear with us. So let's start by adding to env a folder of my code. And the reason that I'm putting it in a separate folder is that it will be easy for you later when you get a new version to env to implement it and to add things here and to do things here. So the first thing we'll do, we'll take the icon validate and drag it and drop it into my code. This will take a second. Great. So now this interface is in env. I'm going to make it public. And I'm going to build env. Perfect. And I'm going to build Northwind. Perfect. And everything still works. Great. Let's run this, see that we can still validate. You're getting the message. Perfect. Now, it's going to start getting interesting. Now, on one hand, we want to make changes to env, and on the other hand, we want to be able to later get new versions of env. So we want to make as minimum changes to env as possible. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mark abstract UI controller as a partial class. Okay? And that will actually allow me to put some extra implementation for this class in another file. So I'm going to add in my code, add new item, and I'm going to just say code, my abstract UI controller. Okay? But I need to make sure that it's the same namespace and the same name as the original class. So I'm going to take the namespace. Let's put them just side by side. Perfect. So I'm going to take the namespace, env, and put it here. And I'm going to take the name and put it here. And then I'm going to say partial. Perfect. Notice that before I put partial, I got an error saying that there's another class with the same name that is not that is partial. So let's call it partial. Perfect. Now, the same code that we've put before. Okay, so let's just go back to our bookmark. Remember, we set a bookmark on saving row, and we want to call it here. Okay, so I'll create here a method void do validations. and I'm going to call it before the onSaving row. Perfect. So now I'm at the right place. It's going to be called before the user code of saving the row, and it's going to call this method. Now, we're going to go to show everything, and we're going to take the code from here and put it here. Okay, and this one's going to be in my code. Right now, where did I put it? I kept the same namespace. Okay, let's fix the namespaces. In my interface, in UIConValidate interface, let's not use this namespace. Let's just use env. Okay, and UIConValidate, perfect. Let's build env, and env builds, great. And let's go build Northwind. Northwind build, great. And now from show everything, we're not going to even use the onSaving row anymore, because we moved it all the way to the do validations in our abstract UIController partial class. Okay, so this has been a bit much. We're going to watch it in a second in the source control changes, but let's first of all test that it works. So I'm going to go to show products, and it didn't work. Now I need to figure out what we've done wrong. Show products doesn't call anything. Abstract UIController calls do validation. Do validation goes over here. And our products entity. Ah, yes, I see the problem. Remember that earlier we moved the UIConValidate from Northwind to env. It actually duplicated it. So we're going to need to delete the ones that exist in Northwind. And then we're going to get a bunch of build errors where we can need to say it's from env.UIConReusable and not the demo reusable, because it's not what we want. Perfect. Great. So let's go back here and see if it works. And we're getting the validation. And the real beauty behind all of this is that go to migrated code, we should get the same validation. Here we get the same validation. Okay, even though we didn't touch this code, and even in the entity browser, we're going to get the same validation. And this is because we moved it all the way up to env. Perfect. So let's just recap what we've done. In env, we created a folder mycode to separate the changes that we're making to env from the ones that come from the migration. This will make it easier for us to get a new version. We've created an UIConValidate interface that has the validate input method. And we created our own abstract controller partial class with only one method, do validations, which we can add as much as we want later. And to the original migrated abstract class, we just changed 2 lines of code. We said that it's partial, which we'll probably do by default for future migrations. And we called the do validations where we wanted it to be called before the onSaving row. So that's it over here. And everywhere else, it's just simple. The categories, instead of inheriting from our demo UIConValidate, now inherit from env UIConValidate. And we remove the validation code from show everything because it's no longer required there. It's handled all the way up in the abstract UIController in env. So this is a wonderful method to take logic and centralize it in specific places and reuse it all throughout your code. You can do things like validation, like making sure that columns exist, like behaving like triggers, or anything you want to do just by using this technique of moving the methods to interfaces, agreeing on the interfaces, and then moving the code to env and making sure that it's called all the way. And another note is just when you are making this kind of changes to env, make sure to think about how little change can you make in the env itself and how much you can put your change in your own folders, so later when you get a new version of env, it's going to be easy for you to implement.